Hello everyone, welcome back to City Skylines. In this video, we will build a fresh new map for our brand new series, where we will build the city of Asturis. It's going to be a futuristic city, verticality, lots of infrastructure projects and so on. But now let's jump into the map making and talk about the city plans later. The reason why I chose to build my own map this time was that I already had an idea how I wanted the city to look and needed a specific terrain for it. So I started in an image editor by preparing a rough height map, and also because I can easily paint some basic city layout, which is what you see right here. The red is terrain, some ridges, mountain ridges. Blue is a coastline and rivers. Yes, the map is going to be somewhere near a sea. I'm thinking about some subtropical area. And green here are main transportation paths, and yellow some rough outlines of the city parts. Thanks to my experience with building Aurelia, I already know I won't be able to make the city that large. So right from the start, I'm limiting the building space by the sea, of course, and the mountains, the terrain. And overall making the terrain a bit more inconvenient to build on, which is just going to make things more interesting going forward. You know, more opportunities for more levels, all kinds of tunnels, bridges, and so on. So I started by getting some real-life height maps of various ridges and valleys from the Alpine area near Torino in Italy, but there wasn't like a single area that would have the perfect shape for what I needed. So I made some height maps smaller, larger, cropped them, extracted only ridges from them, valleys, and so on. So I could then compile the area as I imagined it. This inevitably created a problem at the borders between the various pictures of the height maps. There would be visible edges in the game, and it would just not look good. But I just figured that I'm never going to make the final version of the in-game map by just tinkering with the image editor, so it's fine. As you can see, I planned a couple of valleys on the map. The biggest is going to have some major transportation hub with a direct entrance to a certain big structure right in the middle of the bay. Then more to the right there would be a river valley with more city expansion, and to the south there is a longer ridge kind of forming the edge of the bay, and there's going to be industry all around it. I also placed some guidelines on the picture to mark the 25 tile area, because that's where I would like to build only. I am going to use 81 tiles mod, but there are still some glitches outside the 25 tiles. Graphics mostly, like shadows are weirdly flickering, water sometimes has weird physics there, and I suspect some buildings behave weird too from what I've seen in Aurelia. So apart from some infrastructure, I want to limit my building to the 25 tile area, which is fine. Again, after building Aurelia, I know that I won't be able to make the city larger than that anyway, mostly because of running out of projects to make the city and series interesting, and then of course object limits and, you know, low FPS and kind of my patience. Okay, so now we also moved into City Skylines map editor, and as you can see, I was also going back and forth between GIMP and the editor because I needed to adjust some of the color levels so that the ridges are going to be roughly the same height. But I was really surprised that even with all the glitches right now from the height maps, it's already looking really, really good. It obviously looks super realistic because they are real-life height maps, so it would be weird if it wasn't. But it's just looking good. Now, this is the map theme that I'm using in Altengrad, but we are going to make our own completely new theme mix later, so it's going to look even better than that. Now, I didn't bother creating any kind of like a building area in the height maps, so the black color was just level 0, which is going to be the bottom of the sea, but now I just needed to prepare like a very rough idea for the flatlands in the valleys where the actual city is going to be built. Now, one thing that I did, kind of a simplification, which I think is, you know, okay, is this river, because usually in City Skylines maps you have rivers actually start not at the edge of the map, but in like a little pond very close to the edge of the map, usually hidden in the border fog or something, and there's like a water source and it's creating obviously all the water flow. But I didn't bother with that because I knew that it's just a major headache dealing with that in Aurelia and Altengrad both. So if you're doing some kind of changes to rivers, of course, then the water levels further down are just going to change, and it's just, you know, difficult to work with that. So I just decided to keep everything at the sea level, and the river just goes directly to the edge of the map. It's just going to be much easier to just readjust the rivers further when I'm going to be changing the map, when I'm going to be building the city. Now, this was actually really difficult to do, these kinds of edges, fixing the edges of the pictures, of the height maps, because we just had these like sudden bad looking cliffs, and I had to kind of smooth it down, which was like the first step, and it was already looking okay, just applying the smoothing tool. I'm not really sure how it's called. But you kind of need to do something more there. You need to extend some of the smaller ridges so it just kind of blends in together with the rest of the terrain. And also the valley floor really shouldn't be completely flat. It should be kind of uneven, going lower towards the sea and obviously going higher towards the edges of the valley. So that's all I had to do, but I'm just absolutely terrible at making these. This is my first completely custom map that I ever did, so don't judge too much, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I'm basically just trying to also work at this point with the map theme. I'm trying to make it look so that the cliff texture is not really going to be displaying all that much on the edges of the ridges, but later we are going to pick a different cliff texture that's actually going to disappear even like sooner than this. So we're basically not going to see cliff textures at all on the map, and we are going to have all these ridges just covered with grass all the way. So that's going to look much better. Now, you could have seen that I did already plan some kind of city expansion into various parts of the map, so I'm just trying to cut some portions of these ridges away, which may or may not have been a good idea because I'm, deleting the actual good-looking ridges, and I'm now just replacing them with whatever I can do here. But eventually it turned out looking okay. Obviously, if you focus, on it a bit more, but you're probably going to notice that some things are just not matching between the different ridges. But overall, I think it's okay. That's kind of the reason why I chose the height maps only from one location on the planet, because I was actually trying several different ones. I was trying to, for example, get height maps from the Norwegian fjords, but it's kind of logical, I guess, but for me it was surprising that the mountain ridges look completely different, and it really looked off when I tried combining some of the alpine areas with the fjords or, something else as well. So, that was kind of interesting. So now I'm also preparing some areas for the future industry on that little peninsula on the side of the bay, and just thinking about how all these areas are going to be connected. Where am I going to build like bridges, tunnels, and things like that? And then I arrived at the conclusion that I don't really want to complete the map, like 100% completed in the map editor, because I know that I'm just going to do major terrain changes when I'm going to be actually building or working on the city. So, but then again, when I'm doing this in the map editor, it kind of makes sense that I release this into the workshop because, why not? Might as well, right? But the version that you're probably going to see in the workshop, it's going to be all linked in the video description, is definitely going to be just the terrain. It's not going to have trees. It's not even going to have some like outside connections or anything. So you'll probably have to open it in the map editor and, just finish that kind of. But yeah, this is probably what you're going to see there. But like I said, I really don't want to continue this in the map editor because I know that I'm just going to do major changes in the game. So, why bother? Anyway, let's talk about more about plans for the actual city. So like I mentioned, it's going to be a futuristic city. I was in the beginning thinking that it's going to be like a sister city to Aurelia. It's not exactly going to be cities that are close together because Aurelia was kind of, far away from the equator, for example, using the trees that I did there. It was a bit obvious. But Asturis is going to be a bit different. It's going to be some subtropical, maybe even tropical area. It's obviously next to the sea as well. So it's going to have all kinds of palm trees and things like that. It's going to be definitely a lot more colorful than Aurelia because that was like the major complaint there. And yeah, I agree. We definitely need to do something slightly more colorful. So, that's all going to be here. But I'm still thinking that the two cities might be somehow connected. Maybe there's like a major railway connecting the two cities and they're just, kind of connected in some way. Now, you could have already seen me build a certain structure in the middle of the bay, so that's going to be the main focus of the next episode. and it's kind of like a defining point of the entire city. It's like a very, very futuristic project, but you will all see that in the next episode. Now, this was super important, creating our own theme mix. By the way, all of these details about the series are all going to be written in the video description, and all the links to the workshop and things like that, because I also have like a new mod collection for this city. No asset collection, again, I'm just not going to do those at all, but yeah, mod collection's going to be linked there, and some additional info, also the theme mix. I'm probably going to remember to write it down. Now, as you can see, I really tried to get some kind of very green looking grass and like a very contrasty looking cliffs, but those cliffs are only going to appear at very, very sharp or steep slopes, because that's kind of how I wanted to do it. I took some inspiration from some Asian, mountainy areas around sea, for example, and they are all just covered with green. So that's kind of what I wanted to do also in here. Now, the resources, in this case, pretty much just like in Aurelia, I didn't want to have them as farms, like in Altengrad, but I just wanted to have them as additional colors for painting the surface. So, for example, the oil texture, I believe, or the ore, I'm not sure, I converted it into some kind of like a dirt, and I put it on top of the ridges, which is kind of something that I saw on Google Maps in various places, and I thought it might look okay. Now, trees, that was a big step, because I never did this. I never did in City Skylines like tropical areas with palm trees, and I have absolutely no idea what kind of trees there might be. So in both Altengrad and Aurelia, I was kind of doing the same European style trees, or just northern hemisphere, far away from the equator kind of trees. But in this case, I just picked some random trees from the workshop that kind of looked exotic, and I was just trying to put them down here and see if the heights match, and just create some kind of brushes that I can use, some like a general purpose brushes that I can use on the entire map. As you can see, I'm just populating the ridges in here, and I'm always checking the limits of the game, even though these days I am using the tree anarchy, the new one, so I have the unlimited option for the trees, but still, you kind of don't want to have 5 FPS by just placing a couple of million trees on the map, right? So I think eventually I have some 250,000 trees at this point. It's not obviously a final number, because we are most likely going to get rid of some when we are going to expand the city. And, the super high density core of the city is not really going to have that many trees. It's going to have some, like flowers, planters, things like that. But the forested areas are probably going to, decrease around the map. But I'm not really sure about that. Maybe I'm just going to cover the rest of the unbuilt areas with trees further in the series. But, we will see. But right now I just wanted to have something in the background, because the map needs to be kind of finished, so I just placed these trees like this. Alright, so this was episode 0 of Asturis, because this was just a preparation of the map, but in the next one we are properly going to start building, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.